Game one is in the rearview mirror for both the Heat and Hawks. So how does each team adjust? We'll break down what we might see from Atlanta's Trae Young in Tuesday's game two, plus how Miami can improve to take a 2-game lead in the series. All that and the latest on Bam Adebayo's chances at Defensive Player of the Year on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, Heat Nation. It's a Tuesday edition of Locked On Heat, your daily podcast covering all things Miami Heat, however you may be listening or watching on YouTube, Odyssey, or on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every day. I'm David Ramil, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Wes Goldberg. We've got a great show in between Game 1 blowout victory for Miami and Game 2 on Tuesday night. Wes and I will both be at FTX Arena for that game and giving you an episode recapping the game, hopefully another win for Miami directly from that arena. So make sure that you're subscribed to the show and stay tuned for that. But today we wanted to talk a little bit about how we expect both teams to adjust, because obviously we're seeing a lot of feedback from Atlanta fans that the exhaustion factor, one which the players did not use an excuse. Nate McMillan completely dismissed it at his postgame presser. But we're seeing a lot of Atlanta fans saying, oh, well, they didn't have much of a chance to turn it around, etc. Even our comments on our YouTube page regarding whether or not Miami took advantage of Atlanta and their lack of turnaround from Friday's game over the Cleveland Cavaliers and then to go on a Sunday afternoon, et cetera, et cetera. Look, that's going to be an obvious adjustment right there. They have the same amount of rest in between game 1 and 2 as Miami does. So They'll be able to recoup and get their energy level back to expected levels there. But aside from that, I expect that the biggest adjustment would be to try and get some way of finding some space for Trae Young. Nate McMillan in his post-game press conference talking about the fact that there wasn't a lot of spacing out there for Young to get a shot off. He was really the only shooter out there. Danilo Gallinari, to some extent, was able to capitalize on that. But between Bogdan Bogdanovic, Kevin Herter, DeAndre Hunter, et cetera, there just wasn't a lot of shooting out there. And so they need to do something a little different. And of course, with all things Hawks related, it starts with Young.
Yeah, and that's a good place to start is the spacing that Atlanta had, or in this Game 1 case, did not have. And even Trae Young after the game saying, it's not just me, but I've also got to do a better job of getting my teammates in the right spots too. Right. Which I guess the best way to get your teammates in the best spots is to say so in the press conference after the loss is, hey, guys, you weren't in the right spots. Give me more space, which is kind of how I read that quote. And look, he wasn't wrong. Those guys weren't giving him a ton of room. I wonder what happens. John Collins kind of playing backup center for Atlanta in Game 1, obviously coming back from that injury. Do they start him next to Okongwu? He's like a 40% three-point shooter. He's deadly from the corners. Instead of playing like backup center, do they play him at the 4 next to Okongwu? Does that create more space for Trae Young? Obviously, John Collins is dangerous as a pick-and-roll guy too, right? We know he's a vertical threat. That can also create space for Trae Young. You'd like to see better games. I know Trae Young is the headline here, but you'd like to see a better game from Bogdanovic too, who plays quite a bit of his minutes. He's their 6th man, but he plays starters minutes, kind of like Tyler Herro does. Young and Bogdanovic combined 1 for 20.
Not great.
On that Sunday game. Yeah, not great, but also you could bet that that's not going to happen again. Eric Spoelstra brought up the fatigue thing again today at practice. I think I don't know if he's using that as a warning to his own team, just being like, hey, don't take what it is that we did in Game 1 for granted. Right. But maybe it was a factor. And look, you watched the game, and I rewatched portions of the game this morning, and they didn't look right. And I don't know if it was fatigue or just not being up for the moment or whatever it was, but Atlanta is bad on defense already, and they were even worse than usual last night. And you had a lot of Trae Young just sort of settling for stuff again. Was that tired legs? Was that the fact that Miami didn't let him get in rhythm? Was it a combination of both? Probably, right? And so I think that's where we could start is Atlanta just executing better. This is a really good offense, and they're awesome in the half court, and they were terrible. They're going to make more shots, but they're also going to execute better than they did in Game 1.
If you follow that suggestion regarding Collins, he starts alongside Okongwu or in place of Okongwu?
No, I think alongside,
So Gallinari would come off the bench in that.
Yes.
Okay, that provides an extra scoring punch for them. You know, I think I think it makes some sense there because again, you can attack the soft spot technically in Miami's defense, in that maybe without a rim protector there, Collins can find some opportunities between Collins or Kongu. You can have two rim runners, guys that will catch lobs there. That might be able to offset some of Miami's switching because. Obviously, I think this is a defense that's constructed to really help stop what Trae Young does so well. Because,
Yes.
let's say he gets past that initial screen or an initial defender past the 3-point line, then he starts cutting towards the hoop to unleash one of his floaters. There's a Max Strus or a Jimmy Butler or somebody. Somebody's always there to pick him up and impede his progress, get a hand on him, make it physical, make him uncomfortable, etc.
Yeah,
We saw that
Brad
floater.
Rowland of Locked On Hawks in his post game basically said exactly what you're saying. We know that the Hawks are an awesome half court offense, but they also don't have to play the Miami Heat every single night during the regular season, right?
Right.
And the Heat are uniquely constructed to stop an offense like this Atlanta Hawks one that's led by Trae Young because they could switch literally everything 1 through 5. Max Strus did an awesome job in game 1. He was attacked a little bit the last time these teams played, like the last week of the regular season. He was much stronger at the point of attack tonight, or on Sunday, I'm sorry. But you still have Bam Adebayo on that back line. You still have PJ Tucker on that back line too. And so, I just don't know that there's a whole lot for the Hawks to do as far as their base offense other than just setting stronger screens. And Collins, the other thing with him is he's so much more athletic than Gallinari. Like Gallinari is kind of just a spot-up shooter.
Yeah.
And Collins could just do more stuff, right? He can hit you on the screens. He can roll to the rim. He could be a lob threat for Trae Young, who we know he loves to get into that painted area and throw up lobs for his dudes. And Gallinari's just not doing any of that, and Collins could.
Yeah, I think now that more, even as you brought it up, I'm starting to think about it, and I think that you're probably right. Like, it's not quite desperation point for Nick McMillan and the Hawks, but they need to do something a little different. Like Gallinari, as good as he was, and maybe even Atlanta's best offensive player on a night when nobody really had it going, or an afternoon when nobody had it going, he was still only 5 of 12 as I look over the box score now. So it wasn't like he was knocking down those shots on fire or anything like that. He was able to take advantage of some spots in the defense and stretch the floor out a little bit, but he was only 1 of 3 from 3-point range. It was mostly creating his shot off the mid range. That's something that's still there for him if he comes off the bench. But I think the idea is for, again, Trae to be able to drive. And then if you have a Kongu and Collins there, you've got 2 vertical lob threats. You've got Young's floater. And that all of a sudden just it throws the defense off kilter. Yesterday, it was this all in a string kind of idea where it was just get past one man, there was somebody else there, or even 2 other defenders there, intercepting passes, making things uncomfortable, and forcing Atlanta to shoot from outside, where of course they were only shooting 28%. So
it kind of gives them a little bit more of a physical kind of, because they were just Miami was way more physical, way more athletic than Atlanta, just ran them off the floor. And Collins doesn't get them to the level of physicality that Miami has, but it gets them closer than Gallinari. That's for sure.
That's a good point.
Can I offer one more adjustment speaking of the physicality too? I went back and just watched all the 3-pointers, specifically the ones that Duncan Robinson made. Do they know that Duncan Robinson is an awesome shooter? Because it didn't seem like they knew. It did not seem like they knew. They were going under and just on a lot of screens. They were late on Duncan Robinson. It's like they didn't realize
disrespect there. I
don't know if it was disrespect or just flat out just kind of whiffing on the assignment. Yeah, just not knowing the personnel. They kind of treated like Duncan Robinson like he was a spot-up guy, not really realizing Duncan Robinson likes to move around. He flies around the arc like Klay Thompson, right? He's always using screens. He's always using double moves. He's got a juke move that he likes to get to. He likes to fake his way to the screen and cut back. Like that's Duncan Robinson's whole deal. And for a team that plays the Heat 4 times a year, it didn't seem like they knew that. And that was what was crazy to me. Kevin Huerter started the game on Duncan Robinson. Atlanta fans think that Kevin Huerter is like a 3-and-D guy, and he kind of is, but not on Sunday. Like he wasn't anything for them. And defensively,
there's no 3, no D, no nothing.
Defensively, he was terrible. Like just losing Duncan Robinson constantly. A big reason why Duncan Robinson got going early in that game. So then they switched Bogdanovich onto Duncan. Well, not really switch, but they stagger Huerter and Bogdanovich. So when Bogdanovich was in there, he was just like, Bogdanovich is a guy that doesn't really care a ton about defense unless he really has to. He's got it in him. But in Atlanta, where nobody really cares about defense all that much, he's like, all right, I'll just be an awesome scorer, and that's what he is for them. But he just kept losing. Same thing like Herro, just kept losing Duncan Robinson off screens. Like he would turn around and Duncan Robinson would be on the other wing, and he'd be like, "Oh snap!" And then he would run, and then Duncan Robinson's already launching his three. And then they tried TLC on Duncan too, and he had no business being there. He just had it was like I don't know that he's ever covered Duncan Robinson. It didn't seem like it because he had no idea what Duncan Robinson was doing. And Herter, Bogdanovich, those guys also guarded Max Strus because we know that Spo toggles Strus and Duncan Robinson. And I know Strus didn't have the best three-point shooting night, but he was getting open looks too, and they just treated him like, wait, this guy's a shooter? Like, so I would imagine from game 1 to game 2, they'll realize that both Duncan Robinson and Max Strus are shooters, and that they'll try to close out harder, but also they're putting him through the ringer, right? They're not making it easy. Again, Duncan Robinson's moving around a whole lot. The screens are just there's like PJ Tucker with his screen setting on Sunday, just smashing these dudes, making it really hard. They are going to make it physical. Atlanta has to do a better job of being physical. That's Nate McMillan's job. He's not an X's and O's guy, McMillan. He's not that dude. He's not coming out. He's going to be like, all right, I'm going to reinvent the wheel. We're going to figure this out. No, he's going to challenge his guys to just rise up to the physicality and the energy level of the Heat. We'll see if that works, but that's kind of the only adjustment I see for them.
Good point. And we'll talk about how Miami responds because they've probably got some adjustments of their own that they'll have to make, especially if Atlanta is able to defend the three-point shot a little bit better. We'll talk about that in the next segment before talking about the latest news regarding Bam Adebayo and the Defensive Player of the Year award. But before we do that, just wanted to remind you that PrizePicks is a sponsor of the show. Today's episode, in fact, is brought to you by PrizePicks. It's daily fantasy made easy, and easy is really what they're all about. As fantasy props and pick'ems get more popular, PrizePicks is making it easier for you to play. They do that with the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator. PrizePicks offers any prop you can think of, from points scored to rebounds to even steals. And check out the PrizePicks Power Play. Here's how it works. You predict the over-under on a player's fantasy production, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry. And it's just you versus the projected fantasy totals for a limited time. PrizePicks has an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. They get $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point, but you must use the code NBA. That's right. This is an exclusive offer available for Locked On fans. Sign up today and use the code NBA, $50 for free if a player in your first PrizePicks entry scores a single point. Do it all using the award-winning app on the Apple App Store or Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Plus, PrizePicks is safe and offers fast withdrawals. So don't hesitate. Check out PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code NBA or go to your app store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. And speaking of easy, BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, the start of the Major League Baseball season, and so much more. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, so much more. Head to the website today or use the mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Heat your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. Listen to Locked On Now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or watch it on the Locked On NBA YouTube channel. And of course, make sure to subscribe both to Locked On NBA and to this channel. We've probably picked up a fair amount of new listeners and viewers who are curious about what the Heat are going to do on their playoff run. So make sure you subscribe to the show to get the best coverage available. So we talked about what Atlanta might do in Game 2, but how will the Heat adjust in Game 2? Because I think if you look at what happened there, it wasn't a great showing from them. It was a strong showing, leaning into what Miami does well: the defensive intensity, the switching, timely shooting, really great shooting from Duncan Robinson. But overall, there were still errors there. Miami turned the ball over a little bit too much. Tyler Herro struggled immensely. They weren't getting it done at the free throw line. They were only 11 of 18. This is a team that typically shoots the ball very well at the line, and they struggled on Sunday afternoon. So there are things certainly to improve. And I think if you're looking at what we talked about in the first segment, Atlanta probably will go into Game 2 with a renewed focus on defending the three-point line. How is Miami going to be able to adjust to get more into that mid-range game, to get to the basket and be able to score? Because Bam Adebayo, after missing a week due to health and safety protocols, wasn't particularly aggressive on offense, just 1 of 5 from the floor. But you expect that to change a little bit. He had the mid range. Well, he took one mid range shot, hit that. That was basically his only field goal of the day. Having said that, we're probably going to see a more active and aggressive Bam, one who will be able to take advantage of both Okongwu and Collins in the low block. Is that something that you think might
Yeah.
be a focus for Miami moving forward?
I don't know if it'll be a focus from the coaching staff because we got this from Eric Spoelstra after the game.
Who gives a shit about his scoring?
So it's
Who gives
it. I don't know that Spo is going to push Bam to shoot more, but I think Bam will push Bam.
Do you buy that?
Before
Before we go in there, like I brought it up on Sunday's
I don't buy it.
Yeah, I think it's. I understand what Spo is trying to do. Look, this is a guy who's always takes care of his players, right? He's going to try to deflect. Even when Spo uses the great catch-all phrase, the narratives, like there's this whole mystery of what these narratives are about players, etc. Like we're looking at Bam Adebayo in year 5, and like there have been times throughout his whole career where he hasn't been willing to take that shot. It's not like you can be fair and also critical and be accurate, and that Bam needs to be more aggressive as a scorer at times because, well, he's 20% of Miami's starting offense. You might as well get him the ball on occasion. But that doesn't mean that his scoring isn't important at all. So I think that it's just kind of funny from Spo to kind of just kind of, again, shield his player from any kind of criticism about his scoring on a night when he went 1 of 5 from the floor.
Well, I think the reason I don't think that Spoelstra cares a lot about the field goal attempts is because they don't really run plays for Bam to score out of, right? You're not running ISO post-ups the way you do with Jimmy Butler. You're not running stuff coming off of screens the way you do Duncan Robinson. Bam is sort of like the second option on every play. But if you've got Jimmy feeling it, you've got Tyler Herro shooting 11 times, you've got Duncan Robinson feeling it from three-point range, you got Gabe Vincent shooting it 8 times in that game. And by the way, this is just through 3 quarters basically because hardly any of these guys played in the fourth quarter. Like, yeah, it's fine. I don't. Again, I know that the comments on our YouTube page and stuff are like, hey, Bam needs to be more aggressive. He needs to score more. Everybody, no doubt that Bam's going to have to be more aggressive as the playoffs go on. I didn't really care about it that much in the first game because they won by so many points. It wasn't like they were missing anything. If Bam needs to be that level of aggressive, we've seen specifically this season, he does it, right? He's like, all right, this is what my team needs from me. I'll go ahead and do it. In game 1, they didn't need that. All right. And let's also remember it was his first game back in quite a while. I think that's important. But as far as Miami's overall adjustments, offensively, I think there's things that they could certainly do. I think it's just a matter of getting to their offense more, punishing the smaller guys on Atlanta a little bit more. I know Jimmy did it, but that's going to be between Jimmy and Bam. So maybe that is part of the aggressive part of their games. Like that's what I would like to see. But keep the game slow, right? Like one of the big stats to me in the game was the fact that Miami got 82 shot attempts and Atlanta got 75. Slow that game down. Atlanta's going to want to try to get offensive rebounds, especially with John Collins in there. I know that they don't have Clint Capella, and that hurts their offensive rebounding. But they're going to want to push the pace, get more possessions, keep turnovers low, which they tend to do. And Miami tends to give the ball away quite a bit. I just keep those turnovers down if you're Miami. You had just 15 turnovers in the game. You kept the overall possessions low. I was actually really happy with the offensive output as a team, regardless of where the points came from. Defensively, I think is where the main adjustments are going to have to come because Atlanta is going to come. We know they're going to be better than they were in game 1. Period. End of story. Regardless of what Miami does defensively, they could do the same exact thing defensively. Atlanta's going to make more shots. You rewatch Trae Young's game; he missed a bunch of open ones. And we said it in the post game show. Miami never allowed him to get in rhythm. They were physical with him from the get go, and that threw him off. And it made him hesitate quite a bit. He's not going to do that this time around. He's going to take those 30-footers when he has them. He had like 3 or 4 that could have gone in. He missed a layup or 2. He's going to have a better game. What do the Heat do if he starts to get on a roll? I think one of the things
they do anything?
Well, yeah, I guess just you're not going to reinvent the wheel in this series. You just got to keep being physical. Like Miami is just going to try to bully the Hawks, and the Hawks are going to try to finesse their way to some wins here. That's the series, right? Like that's really the series. One interesting thing that Cooper Moorhead brought up from Heat.com, he was asking guys today in practice, like there was a number of possessions where the Hawks would get Trae Young on a switch onto Bam Adebayo and then move Trae Young out of the play, into the side or the corner or something. And then Trae Young would get rid of the ball. And then you had a 4-on-4 basically between Atlanta's 4 guys on offense and Miami's 4 remaining defenders on defense, while Trae Young and Bam Adebayo hung out on the opposite side. And Cooper was asking a really good question. He was like, is that a good defensive outcome for you guys? Like having your best defensive player out of the play, but also understanding that their best offensive player is out of the play. Is that a good defensive outcome? Are you happy with those 4-on-4 situations? Eric Spoelstra basically said depends. How many times does it happen? What's the situation? Where are we in the game? What's the score? All these things. So to me, that says they don't hate it, but I also think that they might try to avoid it. And I wonder if Atlanta counters by doing that and then having another guy maybe come up on the Hawks and screen off Bam and then have Trae Young move off the ball a little bit more. That's the big wrinkle that I think Hawks fans have been waiting for Trae Young to do all season long is move off ball more. We have yet to really see it a lot, but if the Hawks are going to have any chance in the series, he kind of has to. So you wonder if he's going to do it now and what Miami's counter would be.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, you didn't see Young and DeLon Wright out there for many minutes. Who else would be the ball handler in those situations? Like, the usage for Young is so
I guess,
high.
would be the guy.
Yeah, Bogdanovich, Herter, I guess, in some spots would have the ball in their hands, but neither of them really much as facilitators, and partly that's what. Like, that's
Are you talking about in the 4-on-4 situations? I mean, that's why Gallo was having the game he had. Like, because they would just ISO him in the mid range. Like, he's not a ball handler. He's just sort of jab step. I'm 6'11". I'm shooting over you, and that was sort of what. And so, and look, if Gallinari is the leading scorer for the Hawks every night, the Heat are sweeping this series,
no doubt.
So that's to me, that's a good defensive outcome.
Yeah, I know. I agree. That's why I was just thinking of like. How you're saying that they should kind of lean into Young being more of an off-ball threat, but I just don't know that.
No, I'm saying in those 4-on-4s, like once they actually get there, then Trae Young can't just like hang out in the corner.
Oh,
at that point, he has to be an off-ball threat. Like he needs to start moving around and not just stand in the corner and let Gallo ISO all day.
Yeah, but Bam in that case can cover Young. Like, I mean, it's not. Yeah. It's easier
to
tire
him out. Like, it'll tire him out, right? Exactly. And that's what I think Atlanta. And then, so if you're the Heat and the Hawks sort of lean into that, what do? Do you keep switching everything 100% of the time, basically the way you have, and live with Bam being on Trae Young?
No zone. We saw no zone in Game 1, and that's something that, of course, Spo has used with less frequency this season.
Didn't we see a little bit of zone?
I don't think so.
A few possessions with Gabe and Herro at the top. I think we saw a couple.
It's possible.
You're right. Like if the Hawks lean into that, maybe they do switch to more zone.
Yeah, but then again, that kind of
adjustment.
That creates also that soft spot in the paint where now all of a sudden if you have Collins and a Congo out there again, there's more of a lob threat, et cetera. So we'll see how that plays out. What did you have something else to add?
One more adjustment, before we exit the segment. They were really, really happy. The Hawks were to have Trae Young guard Kyle Lowry. Trae Young was Kyle Lowry's primary defender. Okay. And I think that's partly because the Hawks don't have a ton of great options, and you've got Bam and Jimmy Butler standing there, and you've got Duncan Robinson and Max Strus running around, and you don't really want Trae Young running around. Mm-hmm. And so you got to put him somewhere, and you can't really put him on PJ Tucker because he sets so many. They really don't have a great option. But they basically had Trae Young exclusively guard Kyle Lowry. Kyle Lowry took 8 field goal attempts in that game. He took just 2 field goal attempts when Trae Young was guarding him. Kyle Lowry also just had 1 screen assist in the game. I think I would like to see the Heat involve Kyle Lowry more. If we're talking about guys who you can involve more in your offense, get Kyle Lowry involved, or just let him do high screen and roll with Bam and attack, and get Trae Young involved in the defensive action. Or if Kyle Lowry gets off ball and Trae Young's guarding him, have Kyle Lowry set a few more of those guard screens. We've seen him and Jimmy run that quite a bit, right, this season. And that's obviously how you get Jimmy Butler onto Trae Young. The Hawks are going to do everything that they can to avoid. They'll show, they'll help, they'll double, they'll have Trae Young then rotate off or whatever it's going to be. But just getting Trae Young moving defensively and tiring him out. Again, we know he's going to have a better offensive game from a shooting standpoint. But if you could tire him out a little bit more defensively, get him involved in the action a little bit more defensively than they did in Game 1, that could be a huge adjustment, and just keep, you just want to keep punching Trae Young, basically, metaphorically, of course. And that's one way to do it.
I know this is kind of oversimplistic, but Tyler Herro needs to play better, right? 3 of 11. I think that's 100%. Not reinventing the wheel there either. Obviously, a lot of those looks pretty wide open, missed some easy ones. I think he even missed a couple at the rim, shots that he normally makes with ease. Just wasn't his game yesterday. And I don't think it was anything that Atlanta did defensively to take him out of his comfort zone. Just a game where those shots just were not falling for whatever reason. He was only 0 for 4 from 3-point range. So a little bit of a struggle there. I'm thinking, look, the reality is probably not going to have a 16-point outing again at any point in this series. I don't know that Duncan is going to top 20 points at any other point in this series either, although that's always a threat with a shooter like that. Something's going to be different. One of these two players is probably not going to be as productive as they were in game one, if not both of them. And that being the case, you're going to need more production from Tyler Herro.
Yes.
And you don't want Miami's offense. So I'm glad you brought up that point with Lowry, because you don't want Miami's offense to devolve to the point that it does, where sometimes it's just like, oh, feed Tyler the ball, watch him go to work, and see if he can save the game. You don't want to let Atlanta build a double-digit lead at any point and then have Tyler have to come to the rescue and bail Miami's struggling offense out, especially on a night when, PJ's not hitting or Duncan's not able to manifest anything, or even Max Strus might not be able to get anything, although we've seen Strus catch fire late in games, even when on nights when he's generally struggling. So you're going to need something a little differently, other than just Tyler Herro saving this offense. And so if you can get Lowry involved a little bit more effectively, I like that as a new wrinkle to Miami's offense. And look, again, very simplistic, but when Jimmy gets to the line, he only took 7 free throw attempts because he played less minutes than he normally does. Still, when he's at the line, 2 of 7 is not going to cut it. Very, very strange to see Jimmy Butler go just 2 of 7 from free throw range, but he needs to do a little bit better. But we'll move on.
Yep.
Because I think Bam Adebayo is in the news for all the wrong reasons, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. Before we do that, just wanted to remind you that this episode is brought to you by RockAuto.com. And with an ever-increasing number of makes and models out there, it's impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts of their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? Why do that? You've got computers at home or in your pocket, which means you have access to rockauto.com. And that's the key right there, because they're a family-owned business that's been serving auto parts customers online for 20 plus years. Their website is so easy to use. Just a few clicks and you find exactly what you're looking for your car or truck. You can save time. You can save hundreds of dollars depending on what you're looking for. And you'll find it all on rockauto.com. That's the solution. Why go to a store? They may not have what you're looking for, but rockauto.com will have it, and all at a same low, fair price for all customers, whether you're a mechanic or a do-it-yourself or you're looking to save time and money. RockAuto.com is the answer for you. So go to RockAuto.com right now, see all the parts available for your car or truck, and then when you check out, go to the section that says, how'd you hear about us? And write the phrase locked on so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. That's RockAuto.com. Such a reminder that you can always reach us via email at lockedonheat@gmail.com or via Twitter using the hashtag AskLOHeat. Be sure to please subscribe to the show, leave a review, and we need those comments. We need those feedbacks. We love hearing from all of our listeners, especially new ones, during what projects to be a long playoff run for Miami. This music, they're changing it up, DJ West. I can't believe it. It's pretty stylish there.
Yeah.
So here's the segment that I didn't want to get to, because honestly, I'm finding myself very, very upset about the news that broke Sunday evening when NBA PR released a list of all this. I don't think they've done this in the past. Perhaps I'm mistaken, but they released a list of all the postseason awards: MVP, Coach of the Year, Sixth Man of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year,
Yeah.
and they had their 3 finalists for each of those awards listed. So let's get to the good news before we get to the bad. Sixth Man of the Year, Tyler Herro, obviously finalist for the Sixth Man of the Year award, predicted by many to be the favorite, likely to win the award, which is great for him. Seemed, I was going to say non-plus, but it's actually the opposite of that. Plus isn't the right word either. He just didn't seem like he really was focused on the postseason award. Again, I think you had some audio, or did you ask him the question himself?
No, I had audio. From practice today. He was asked what he thought about it, and he was like, "It's all right." And I don't blame him. He doesn't. No. He doesn't even like to think of himself as a sixth man. Right. I remember asking him earlier in the season. I'm like, "Do you even want the award? Because you just you kind of shun you don't even like the label. So would you even want the award of being the best one of those things?" And he's like, well, I am the sixth man. So if I'm going to be the sixth man, I might as well be the best in the NBA
That's
at it.
fine.
And I might as well win the
Star in
award.
your role. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
That's something I've heard from him like
Yeah.
early in, I think in his rookie season, or maybe even when he was coming off the bench last year. Like, just star in your role. That was something that he's embraced from day one. And I always remembered that from time.
And he has, right? He is the star sixth man of the year. So he's going to win that. And then Eric Spoelstra asked about the coach of the year thing. He literally said, don't ask me about it. And then like a couple people asked him about it. And so that was interesting. And he just,
there you go, Tim Reynolds.
It was not Tim Reynolds.
It wasn't? Come on.
No, it was, I'll tell you who it was. Ira asked him about it, and he just laughed it off and said, he actually, and this was interesting, he laughed it off and then directed it to, yeah, it's whatever. I don't really care that I'm a finalist for this award, but it's a shame that Bam Adebayo is not a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. Then we all got a chance to talk to Bam Adebayo. And then Bam, Ira again, first question. Ira Winderman for the Sun Sentinel, for those who don't know. First question, what did you think about not being a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year? It's a very good question. It's a question that had to be asked. Bam Adebayo said, I didn't know. And Ira said, you can't be serious. How did you not know? And Bam basically says, I don't have social media. I don't watch TV. How wouldn't I know? I find that a whole load of BS. And by the way, afterwards, Heat PR is like, he knew. We told him. Before, like, they don't, like, that's what a good PR staff sends him up, being like, by the way, in case you didn't know, you're on a finalist for this. You are 100% going to be asked several questions about this. So be prepared for that. And that's what they did, I'm sure. And so I don't know what this thing was from Bam. I don't know if he's trying to downplay it, the fact that he didn't care. But after just a little bit of prodding, just be like, hey, what do you think about this? He went off on the fact that the Heat don't get enough nationally televised games. And that's why he didn't win the award. We have that sound. Let's just play that right now.
Disrespectful, obviously. I feel like I can do anything that, 2 out of the 3 can do. Besides, I can't teach height. But, they all 3 play on TV more than me. So I would expect that. They get more TV games. And they get more exposure. People like to talk about them more. Don't nobody want to talk about us. I feel like that's why a lot of dudes do get a lot of awards, in my opinion. They're always on TV, getting to just showcase their talent.
Is there a degree of frustration for you knowing that probably one of the main reasons you're not in that top 3 is something that you couldn't control at all, which is your son?
The frustration is we don't get as much TV games as they do. That's the only thing that's frustrating, because I feel like if I had as many TV games as them, it wouldn't be, I'm out of the finalists and this, that, and the third. Like I always say, 60% of our team is undrafted. The media doesn't want to talk about undrafted players. We can be honest here. Media don't want to talk about, Gabe Benton, Max Strus. They just recently started talking about Duncan. So in my opinion, I feel like that's why we don't get as much exposure and, credit as we should, because we got 60% of our team is undrafted.
2 notes, and then I'll lay out, and we can get to your take, David. Dave McMenamin from ESPN standing right behind me as Bam Adebayo is railing against the fact that the Heat have no national TV games. And I almost wanted to turn to Dave and be like, can you do something about this? Which obviously he can't.
The Lakers
it's not in his control. But and then as far as the national TV games go, Bam has a point. The Boston Celtics, Marcus Smart's Boston Celtics, 21 national TV games. Mikal Bridges' Phoenix Suns, 26 national TV games. Rudy Gobert's Utah Jazz, small market Utah Jazz, Salt Lake City, 14 national TV games. The Miami Heat this year, 10 national TV games. And I actually think it might be fewer because they had like 1 or 2 taken off of national TV, switched out, which I think might have been for a Celtics game. So the Celtics might even have like 22 or 23. So Bam has a point when it comes to that. I don't know if you buy it as the reason that he didn't win Defensive Player of the Year, but he ain't happy about this.
It's a factor. I'm glad he brought it up. I don't like being lumped together as a media, not talking about the the non-drafted players, because certainly we've been talking about them, like Duncan Robinson's first podcast appearance.
He was looking straight at Dave McMenamin when he was saying that. So he was just
He doesn't
blaming
know who
ESPN.
McMenamin is.
No,
Damn
I
it.
was kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay. I'd like for him to point him out and go, hey, where's your boy LeBron at now, huh? Something along those lines. That would
I
make great
actually do
drama.
think that the Heat players don't really lump in the local media with like
No,
the
you're right.
national media.
Yeah,
I
it's
have not gotten
media.
that
Yeah.
sense from talking. Yeah, when
No,
when
that's
they say
fair.
media, they mean Charles
Not you
Barkley
guys. Yeah.
and Brian Windhorst and these guys. Yeah.
So I do think it's a factor. I think the biggest factor, unfortunately, was also the fact that Bam only played 56 games. I know that's what Coop was trying to get to when he asked that question
Yes.
about things beyond your control. It was the injury that took him out for so many games, etc. I think that was the biggest factor as to why. But I think, look, I made this case weeks ago on Locked on NBA. Like, Matt Moore, my co-host, asked me who I thought was the defensive player of the year. It's Bam. Nobody does what he does. Like even today, we were seeing threads from Cooper and others talking about what Bam does as the most switchable defender. Like the statistics are there. I know that Zach Lowe was probably one of the few guys that had Bam number one as his
Right.
defensive player of the year candidate. But other than that, maybe I would say it's probably 25% not being on national TV, 50% not being the injury taking him out for as many games as it did, and the other 25% just saying, you know what, I don't know exactly what Bam does, because I still think that there's a little bit of that, not understanding exactly what his impact. And this is even from media people and
Yes.
others. So
No, you're right.
it's a concern.
And I think that's part of what's get lost because it's so much about the advanced stats with Bam, right? It's not the
Yeah.
counting stats. It's just not. And there is a nuance to his defense that you need. And I always say, like, well, they're not on national TV, so he needs like some crazy highlight where he like blocks Kevin
He
Durant
had
and
it.
then steals from Kyrie Irving in the same possession or something like.
Yeah.
He
He had that
did. He
one
had it.
against the Chicago Bulls.
But
Remember
nobody
where he
cares about
blocked?
the Bull. Like everybody
Yeah,
expects you to beat the
maybe.
Bulls during that. Like Kobe White, nobody cares if you
Yeah.
block Kobe White.
Kobe White and Nikola Vucevic on the same play. Like, come on, that's something. Hey, Marcus Smart can't do that in his sleep, and Rudy can't do that. And Rudy's a great defender, etc. Mikal Bridges, great defenders. It's not a knock on them. Like you can't give the award to everybody. I just see
I
what
think the
Bam does on a
games
nightly
played was
basis.
the main factor. I think
Yeah,
there's
for
just
sure.
a lot of people that just didn't have him on their ballot because of the games played. I disagree with it. I think once you get down to the minutes, like total minutes wise,
Yeah,
if you kind
he's
of
up
go
there.
down to it, like Bam's only played like 6 fewer games if you get down to minutes than
Yeah.
like Rudy Gobert, and only like 10 fewer games like per minute than Marcus Smart. So I don't believe that, but I'm glad that Bam said something because it needed to be said. I think the Heat have kind of went through the season being like, we don't care. Finally, it's impacting Bam, his resume, his pride, and he's like, you know what? Damn it, we should be on more national TV games. I'm glad he said something.
Yeah, and I hope that he responds the way we expect him to, which is probably lighting a fire under him a little bit and playing even better than he did in
Mhm.
game one, which is saying something because he had a masterful defensive performance. But that'll do it for today's episode. Make sure to subscribe to the show so you can get our recap of game two and all of our coverage throughout the playoffs. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make your second listen Locked On NBA, Locked On Experts, covering the biggest stories around the league every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. Every episode is free and available wherever you get podcasts. This is David Ramil signing off for now. Thanks so much for joining me, Wes.
Wrap it up, E. Like and subscribe, people.